Was joining your family business always on the cards? Did having Mr. Shashi Prabhu as a well-established and recognized architect play as an influential uh, in your career decision?
Not really. I was 21, and just like all of the other children at that time, kids at that time, I was drawn to studying in America. I had cousins in America and UK who had influenced me. I had an aunt who had settled in America at that time for a long time. And these guys were all inspiration to me to go and study abroad, because each one had told me that studying over there would change my perspective for greater good. I didn't know what that meant at that time, but I did make the applications to go over there. My family was not involved in my applications. I did it all on my own. And one day I just came back to my parents and said, "Hey, listen, I got into this school in upstate New York called Cornell, and I would like to go." And that was it. That was a one-way ticket for me for of sorts. So I did my graduation, and just even before graduation, I had like 3 or 4 job interviews lined up, or job offers rather lined up. And so I did the interviews, and I had no idea what working meant in a foreign country. But each one of them were very, very eager to give the job. And all of a sudden, I took this one job uh, from a project management company in New York, and I ended up working over there for 7 years, almost over 7 years. So yes, my father was a large influence on all of us at home, but not necessarily the career decision. We were taught to be independent at home. We were pretty much left alone to decide our rights and wrongs, and however we chose to live them. And that was probably one of the largest driving factors of being able to work independently. Uh,
So as an architect, I mean, working for an architectural firm was not something that it was like a start point for you. It was just
Uh, no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't really say working for an architectural company. Working in India was actually not an option I had thought.
okay.
I never knew that after so many years, after 15 years, I would be coming back and working in an architectural company. That too for my father in the country which I never thought I would work in. So yeah, it was a big circle for me.
Okay. So while you have been with the family business for over 15 years now, you did work for other companies after your engineering. Can you take us through the journey post engineering?
Right at the end of my education at Cornell, I started getting a lot of job offers. Even before I graduated, I had companies sending me letters asking me to join them, showing fancy roles, responsibilities, and career growth and money and all that stuff. At that time, I had no idea what working in America meant. I mean, it was just a like everybody's doing, so you're doing it kind of situation. But before that, one of the questions you asked me how I started in my engineering, and that was sort of funny and embarrassing in hindsight. So obviously, just like everybody else, I had done my 12th standard exams, and I did pretty well. And so everybody said, "You've done good in 12th standard, so you should do engineering." So that was as simple as that. So getting good marks was a way to define my entire life, and nothing more than that. It wasn't really more fanciful than that. So I did my engineering, and then after that, I explained to you how I went to America. Uh, in after right before I graduated, I had a job. Actually, I had a job, very good job at a company called General Electric. It was quite a fancy job in their aircraft division, so to say. It was quite fancy. But as this gentleman sent me an email at that time asking me to meet him, and he said he would change the way I looked at career. So I was not very keen because, like I said, I didn't have any particular thoughts on living in America or working there. But nevertheless, I did give him a chance, and that was the time I changed my perspective in working. we spent 3 hours together. He was a vice president of a very large construction management company, probably the largest one in the world, called Bovis Land Lease. At that time, they had over 100,000 employees. But the way he sold that company to me, that was my re-entry into this business once again. He told me I would be wasting my entire career if I joined somebody like General Electric, where I would be nobody. Where I had, working for him, get the opportunity to build one of the fanciest buildings in the world. And surely they had done the most fancy buildings in the world. They had done Statue of Liberty renovation. They had worked on World Trade Center in New York. They had worked on Sears Tower. They had worked on so many buildings that working for them would have been a treat. So with little thought, I joined them, and there was no looking back. So I took up that job, and I worked with them for 7 years, and then somebody else pursued me. I was in another company for another 3 or 4 years, and by the time I was done, it was almost 15 years. About 10 or 12 years into my working, my father started putting an idea in my mind that working in India would be intriguing, interesting. Things were changing, things were opening up. Until then, I had looked at India, but it was not really interesting, because what we were doing in America was far more interesting than things here. But right around 10 or 12 years, probably in the early 2000s, things were changing at that time. And when one of the trips I remember, I came to India and I looked at some of the projects that were happening, and they were at par with what we were doing work in the US. The technology we were using here, and the processes that we were using here, obviously, were at par. And in 2005, I changed my mind, and all of a sudden, within probably 6 months, I moved everything back, and I was working in India.
Right. So could you give some examples as to what kind of technologies were you looking at, like when you?
So one of the greatest, one of the biggest challenges of working in America is the management of risk, um, because everything has got a value. Time has got a value. Unlike many of the projects that are done in India, every delay, every minute is accountable to somebody. And that sense of accountability was the most important thing. How you manage that risk, and how much, how you manage that time. So you used lots of tools to manage those risks, to decimate those risks, to identify those risks, so on, and make each person responsible for those risks. I saw that people were working at a similar level in India, obviously not as stringently followed, but nevertheless, the thought process was there. The materials that were being used in India at that time were quite similar to what we used in the US. And looking at the opportunity of what could happen in India over the next so many years, it was a perfect time to look at this market.
Right, right. And also, you mentioned that you worked with two companies in US. What
Right.
was the field that your role was around?
So I started as a project manager. I used to manage projects. I used to be at the ground. I used to build the projects from ground up. And as I started becoming senior in the organization, I started managing people. I started managing larger projects. I started managing teams. I started managing risk. Few projects, we were construction managers at risk, which means we paid the mistakes we made. So which means my job was to look at the profit. Eventually, I started getting into profit and loss management positions, which eventually led me to change my companies and start assuming roles of operations. And finally, when I left, I was managing the operations of a large construction company.
Okay. So you went right from ground up, ground level
Oh,
to.
yeah, yes, yes. Right from holding the tape and managing the third shift, all the way to managing the operations of a company. So yeah, my journey was from ground up.
Right. Being a fellow engineer, it intrigues me to explore its application in unconventional disciplines, which makes me ask you about your perspective on how engineering has helped you play a role in your business today.
So, in my opinion, I believe engineering is not necessarily uh, an education in a particular field, but I think it's an idea. I think it's a way you look at a problem. It teaches you to be analytical. It teaches you to be logical and precision, because without precision, engineering fails. So all these three aspects you start learning in right from the base. And you perhaps don't understand the importance of all these factors when you are studying them, but they start playing a very important role in the decisions that you make. Being analytical and logical has probably helped me in my entire career. You start looking at every problem analytically, and the mysteries go away. You are able to take a better decision. Able to take a better business decision with analytical um, identification. 99% of our life is ruled by logic, and sometimes, many times, we fail to accept that. And engineering has helped me make my decisions logically. Yes, sometimes they have not been precise, but the logic has again found a way to bring me to find solutions which have worked. And third one is the precision. One of the greatest things, one of the things that I learned in America was to be precise. There was no, uh, there was only one winner, and it was a very, very highly stressful job, and there was no option to fail. And the only thing that probably um, allowed me to do my job well was to understand precision. So yeah, these three aspects of which are the fundamental pillars of engineering have guided me through all the decisions, may it be business decisions, or coming over here, or working with my clients, or giving decisions to my people.
Right. So would you also say that it helps you to have a very detailed logical reasoning behind everything that you decided to do?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, yes, we are all human beings, and a sound mind doesn't always prevail. But once again, you are brought back to your fundamental teachings, and logic becomes a very important part of every decision that you take. And eventually, decisions are taken with logic in mind.
Right. Uh, Also, sir, if I may ask, in a business that you are in today, how is it helping you as an engineer? Would you be able to cite some very clear example that you are benefiting from?
Um, so most of my time today goes in dealing with my our team members, and we have over 100 of them today. And as you know, even with two people, you have conflicts, you have different ideas, you have two minds working and having two independent opinions. And we are a very independent, driven company, which means we allow our people to speak their mind. And when we have this kind of company allowing 100 people to speak their mind, obviously you need a moderator and a mediator to be able to get the right solution. So in this case, the analytical skills have probably helped me most, because in analytics, 1 plus 1 is always 2. In logic, sometimes 1 plus 1 may not equal 2, but in analytics, 1 plus 1 is always 2. So which means it's very easy to convince people using logic, and it's very difficult for somebody to argue analytics. So that has helped me a lot in through my entire career, especially right now when I am mostly dealing with people.
Right. I think that's a very interesting perspective. Definitely something that I can put in place. Can you share a glimpse of the equation between you, your brother, and your father as business partners? Like, what's the leadership routine like today?
Excellent. We actually share a phenomenal relationship between all three of us, and also my mother, actually, incidentally, who's the partner of the company. All four of us now work together, and on one side, we are all very strong-minded people. We have been taught to do so right from childhood,
Mhm.
and so we do have our moments of arguments. Uh, we argue about points. We have our opinions, own strong opinions about issues, but we have been taught to leave all that stuff behind when we go home. So if you see four of us in our homes or his house or wherever, we are like four different people that we are at work. We also get to share our lunch together. So we make it a point where all of us come together for our lunchtime wherever we are, and that's where we leave the company behind. We leave the work behind, and we are just family. But when we leave that lunchroom, once again we are back in our office, and we have to be, I suppose, because if we don't, then we are not going to do justice to our company, which is now 100 people are depending on us for their livelihood. So it's a big responsibility. So we leave all that stuff behind, and then we are back to ourselves, having our own opinions, having doing the work that we each one do. So each one of us have taken individual roles and responsibilities. I guess the field is large, and the environment is very large, and playing field is very large, that we don't really need to step on each other toes. There are tons of projects, tons of clients, tons of businesses, tons of verticals that each one of us can be looking at. There is the management of the company, which is a big issue, which is operations, so to say. There is technology. There are various aspects that we could be looking at. There is strategy. There is business development. There is now social media. There are so many aspects of areas where, in fact, each one of us, if we all of us focus in one area, we wouldn't be able to do adequate work to support do everything, so to say. So we balance each other very well. We bounce ideas off of each other very often. We argue in meetings. We sometimes fight, but like I said, at 6 o'clock we leave all that stuff behind, and then we are family.
Right. So that brings me to ask the question as to how have you all found a way to divide the functions? Is there a certain basis on which you all have divided functions?
That's a very challenging question. So we like to do what we do, and I think in certain ways, each of us do have a certain strength of their own. My strength being in operations, or logic, or engineering, or whatever may be, where my brother has deeper sense in pure design, or whatever may be. And I have my mother, who's looking at the finance part of it, and various aspects of uh, other design. She has a background in interior design as well. So each one of us contributes in our own ways. I think each of us are managing independent clients, and that is the sort of division, because clients like to have one person associated with them. So for a professional company, that's a logical divide. It's not necessarily the field, but the clients that you look at.
Right.
So we do manage different clients, but at the same time we come back and look at various aspects of the company, and then each of us have opinions about how we do, and then if those opinions are felt right, then we act upon them. So
Right.
there are no egos. Luckily, working with family, there are no egos, that one is right and one is wrong, because if you are wrong, then you just correct it, and if someone is wrong, you just advise. And that's how we have been doing or working for a long time.
Right. So if I may just have understood it rightly, would you say that while each of you might have a set of clients, but you'll have a focus function also to play in the company? where you're like looking at developing in your own niche strength areas?
So, yes and no. We sort of work in a democracy in the sense there are lots of group meetings where people are contributing. So, perhaps I may have a greater strength in project management and project financing, so to say, how you manage the profitability for projects. But that doesn't stop my partners and family, of course, but my partners from looking at it from their point of view. So we have group meetings, we have uh, joint bouncing of ideas where each one of us contribute to the discussion, and then eventually we do what makes logical sense for the growth of the company. And I think all of us are focused on growing the company. So that becomes a common point. So yes, while each one of us may share at a given point a certain expertise or a field, I the way we are structured is not necessarily that's how we look at it. We look at it as a joint responsibility of all four stakeholders of the company.
Right. I believe opening multiple offices at multiple global locations would have been a very strategic call for you as a firm. Would you help us get a context on it?
So I want to start by saying that we are not businessmen. We are professionals, and a professional deals with people, and our asset are our people, and we work for people to build their assets. So which means it's a very, very highly relationship driven uh, business, so to say. It's a business of profession. So in this highly intimate business of dealing with other people, relationships are the only thing that matter. And there are two challenges. On one side, you have to feed the company that you have created with over 100 people, get projects all the time because every month you're expending money in paying salaries and all those things. But at the same time, you have to ensure that you do not dilute the the relationships and also the level of service that you are giving. So we have contemplated this issue for a long time. It's very easy to open an office. All you do is to go to a new city, open an office, and you start business development and you start working over there, taking projects. But does that really give you the same level of service that you are able to give to the clients next door? That's a large question. Companies have become large, professional companies have become large, and they have sort of um, they have worked on the principle of division, in the sense each office is an independent office by itself, which manages the relationships. So we have toyed the idea of doing that, but somewhere we are very cautious about it. We don't want to grow so fast that we forget our clients, and we don't want to stagnate that we do not give growth to our people and to ourselves. So it's always a challenge, always a balance. Strategically, we have opened offices where we have found our clients wanting to do work with us. For example, Pune. We had a client who insisted on developing a large sports city. And the project was large enough to warrant about 25, 30, 40 people working in one location. And that made logical sense to start an office. We started an office in Hyderabad, in Nagpur. So similarly, wherever we have had projects go in with our clients, where there was a substantial input of manpower, we have toyed with the idea of opening office, but not necessarily. We want to be cautious because, like I said, we don't want to forget the quality of service that we have provided to our clients. So we want to be very, very cautious because we can do a lot of things. In today's time, technology has brought us to the idea that we can be sitting anywhere and doing work anywhere. Of course, having an office makes logical sense and strategic sense because it saves the cost of doing business. But we don't want to reduce the cost of doing business at the cost of giving poorer service. So that is always behind our mind. So we are balancing. Wherever we see an opportunity, we will go and expand, but we won't expand for the sake of expansion.
As an entrepreneur, what has been the most challenging situation in your career till date?
So I can name two.
Okay.
My first challenging part in my career was my move from America to India. Um, in the beginning, it sounded very nice, very floral, uh, but soon things started changing. Obviously, after living in America for 16 years, your mind is molded in a certain way, and when you start coming in a different land and a region with a different way of working, it's too soon starts realizing that perhaps um, things are not going to be as simple as you anticipated them. They are going to be a lot more challenging. The way people deal with each other was very different. The way the expectations were different. The responsibilities that people took on were different. A lot of things were different. But there were a lot of good things as well, so which balanced out quite well. So yes, the first challenge I had was to move from US to here, and by far the biggest challenge for uh, us as a company and me was Corona, obviously. Uh, Being in a lockdown for over 1.5 years and still requiring to deliver all your projects in time, because we are in the public sector mostly. A lot of our work is in the public sector. Um, and a lot of work is in essential services, which means we are doing right now over 14 hospitals. We have to keep our offices open. So in these times, to keep our offices open, to motivate everybody who's not even around you to keep working and to deliver the product at the same pace and timelines that you did before Corona is probably one of the biggest challenges we are facing. I think we did extremely well considering the circumstances. Over the past 1.5 years, we have uh, delivered every deadline to our client. We have started construction. We have continued construction. We have commenced construction. We have ended construction projects all through the Corona and without any um, uh, hiccups. I give a lot of credit to our boys and girls who are working from their home. It's not easy to work from home because you have challenges of family, you have challenges of children, and all those things. And to do all that work in this kind of time cannot be easy. But still, they have continued to support, because I think the way we have raised our company is to um, allow everybody to have a sense of ownership, because everything that we do and as a company does, eventually it is going to translate into success of each person working with them. So we have allowed this kind of mindset to fester, and I think all of them have taken a sense of ownership in everything we have done, and because of this, I think we are coming out of Corona very, very well. But that doesn't stop me from saying that this is the biggest challenge I've ever faced in my entire career.
What would you say, as on a very personal note, has been the biggest learning for you as an entrepreneur through this tough period?
So, Corona has taught me personally to reinvent. In March of 2021, 20, it was a sense of shock. Um, Nobody had any idea what was going to happen. It was just a brief period of lockdown. People were supposed to go to their houses and they were supposed to come back after 15 days, maybe. Uh, we were lucky. And once again, strategy, logic, and analytics brought back, saved us, so to say. In March of 2021, we jointly, as a company, I'm not going to say I, but we as a company decided to take a strategic decision to break our office into 101 pieces. So each of the person took away a part of the office to their homes. Every person took their personal computer. Technology saved us a lot because we were all connected on the cloud. We were all connected on certain applications which allowed communication. And we went working from home. Now, the lockdown went from 15 days to 1 month to 2 to 3 to 1 year. And I see the trouble faced by so many companies who were not fortunate enough to even take their own data and their computers home, and they suffered for 6 months. I see that they were not able to deliver projects to their clients. It's right in front of our eyes that people shut down their companies for 6 months, 8 months, whenever until lockdown opened. And we were lucky enough to be operational all throughout. And I think reinvention was one of the biggest things that allowed us to manage this. We explored use of technology, alternate technology, which we had never used. We went on collaborative platforms like Microsoft, like some of the other platforms, where we were able to simulate the office environment online. Today, my entire office is on these platforms, and they are working seamlessly by having probably more interaction and intercommunication with each other than they had before the lockdown. So I think we have come out a lot stronger as a company from before the lockdown. And I'm quite convinced that if a company is able to successfully meet the challenges of a problem, then they come out much stronger. And I think I strongly believe that we are as a company.
Shashi Prabhu and Associates as a business aside, on a personal note, what would be your next milestone as an entrepreneur? So,
Um, I don't really, I'm not the person to make milestones. I'm not a person to make um, challenges. I just look at every day as a challenge as it comes, because every day is a new challenge. Um, Sometimes we are faced with people issues, sometimes we are faced with money issues, sometimes we are faced with client issues, regulatory issues. Every day is a challenge by itself. And like I said, managing a show which is where 100 some people are working together itself is a challenge every day. So no, I have not placed any personal milestones for entrepreneurship or anything at sort, because that puts undue pressure on performing the company, on performance of the company. We want to do good projects. We want to satisfy our clients. We want them to make money. We want them to have successful projects. And in turn, we survive as a company and we grow as a company, where each of a person is able to experience personal growth in their career, in money, and whatever. So having that as a daily challenge itself is big enough to not want to have longer term challenges.